Hello everyone! So in this video I'm going to show you my progress on trying to complete this project right here. So I went out and I bought this pattern design from Walmart. As you can see, it's a Regency style gown. So I figured this would be a good place to start with getting the idea of how Regency gowns fit together and sew together. So I'm going to try to do this first, and also to go from making bags and other items to making clothes. This I figured would be a good place to start, or maybe it's not, but I'll find out. So I've already cut out the bodice pieces for the dress underneath here from this pattern. Now, I did make a stupid little mistake when I was buying this. For some reason, my head was thinking pant size. I don't know why, but I bought this pattern based off of my pant size. And then I got it home and I looked at the actual measurements for each part, and I remembered that pattern sizes are much larger than actual clothing sizes. So I'm pretty sure that this pattern piece is going to be too small for me personally. So this is going to be a multi-step project. One, practice putting together a bodice, practice just making a bodice. And two, having to make this bodice fit me. So I'm going to be first practicing using pattern pieces and how to use them to make a bodice, and then I have to figure out a way to make it larger so it can actually fit me, because these pieces are too small for my shape, which is why I'm going to be making it out of this old sheet instead of any material that I bought, because I have a feeling that it's going to be a lot of trial and error throughout this whole project. So I wanted something that I didn't care all that much about, and if I just get into a big huff and just throw it all away, it's not going to be that big of a deal, because these are sheets that I was planning on getting rid of anyway. So that's what I'm working with. So I've already cut out the bodice pieces to their largest size, and then I'm gonna have to iron the pattern pieces, and I'll iron out this sheet, and then I will just put them on and cut it out and see how that all works out. I'm thinking of around the pieces that it's obvious that it's just as the size got larger, the cuts got bigger. I will just maybe add an inch to all those pieces. The other pieces where the shape changes, so like this one, so like for this piece, you can see that only this part got larger as the shape, as the pattern numbers increased. So with this one, I'll just add like an inch here. So I'm just going to look at the shapes, at the lines written on the pattern, to see where I need to add to. So where it got larger or where the line changed, I'm going to try and do that an inch all around to just try and make it bigger and see if that's going to be enough. And then if it's not, I will have to go from there. And so I might end up with a complete bodice that would only fit somebody who is smaller than me, or not. We'll see. I finished ironing, and the ironing did very well with the pattern, not so well with the sheet, so I'm just pinning the pattern into place, and I'm marking an inch around all the areas where it increases, and I'm trying to keep in mind these little notations, and I measure out keep it in line and where it should go and all of that measuring. And the lines where it doesn't show any change, I'm just keeping it the same. But I got to an interesting part when I was drawing down the line for this piece. Because as you can see, it's bigger here. So this is the 14 and this is the 12. So this is the bigger line. And it comes down and they meet up here. And then it looks like they switch here where the 12 becomes the bigger piece and the 14 is the smaller piece. But then if you follow these lines down here, suddenly 14 is on the outside again and there's no crossover. So I'm not entirely sure what that means. And if I was just cutting in the pieces, I wouldn't really know which piece to cut and what it's going to be like. So I'm assuming, because it doesn't tell me here, I might need to look through the little notebook that came with it to see if they mentioned this. But for now, I'm assuming that it's the switcheroo from here all the way along till here, and then it's normal here. So that's why I've made this bigger line here. So I'll meet it up to here and then I'll stop. And I'll see if that's what it is. If it's not, then I will know I need to figure this part out when I'm making the real one and not of the sheet. And at first I was just gonna place them down and then cut. As you can see, I already have these ones pinned down. So first I was gonna place them out, spread out, and then cut them off a chunk and then go, when it's smaller, one by one in. But I'm afraid that this sheet may not be big enough to do bodice and skirt, because this lower half here, when it's unfolded out, doesn't really seem to hit the length of my waist. Or I'm sorry, the length from my waist down to my ankles, or the length that the dress should be. So I'm trying to save as much of the fabric as possible, which is why I'm marking it out on the sheet here, and I'll cut around. But so that's where I'm at the moment. I still have these 3 pieces to do, and then I'll be done putting it on and folding it out. And I'm assuming that, because these arrows said place it on the grain with the selvage. Now, because this is a sheet, I don't know exactly where this selvage would be. So I matched up these arrows to the stretchiest part, which is why I folded it this way, because the grain seems to run this way. So I'm matching the lines with that. And I'm hoping I am correct. And so we'll see. So I have finished pinning and marking. I did all the other ones except for this one. I still haven't figured out how I'm going to do this one, so I'm going to leave this for last. But I finished pinning and marking, and I cut off the extra solid length, and then I'm going to individually cut out all these pieces. I still don't like how spread out I had to make them. I feel like this might be a little bit of a waste of fabric still. So if you have any suggestions on how I could have done it closer together, or how I could have fit them to match better, because I did look at the little cutting out layout thing that they had, and it does have them all together much better and nicer and neater than this. But it also was looking at the pattern pieces themselves as just putting these pattern pieces next to each other. But I had to add in this 1 inch So I needed to leave room and movement, so it didn't seem like it'd actually be able to work. Maybe it would have worked better if I was just using the pieces and not having to add extra around, or maybe not. And also, because of the sheet, the way it's stretched, I had to fold it this way to make it line with it, and it seemed they wanted to fold this way, so I have folded it horizontally in half, and I think they wanted me to fold it like vertically in half so it's much taller, and this is wider than what they wanted. I don't know, but if you have any suggestions on how I could have made this better, or maybe I did fold it wrong, just let me know, because I still feel like this is a big waste of fabric, and I'm hoping what's left over is still usable for a skirt. But now I'm going to cut out each of the individual pieces to where I have marked, and then I'm going to try ironing again with the pattern and the piece still attached to each other. That's my plan. I'm going to have to do something about the pins because I don't want to iron over the pins, but we'll see. We'll see. But I wanted to try ironing again because these pieces are very bleh. Yeah. So for now, I'm going to cut out, and then I'm going to think about the ironing and see what I'm going to do with that, or see if I'm just going to try to attempt to just sew the pieces together. So alright, so I cut all the other pieces and I ironed them. I had to separate them from the pattern or to iron, so I did that, and they turned out a little bit better the second time around with ironing. As you can see, they still have a little bit of wrinklage, but not much. But of course, I didn't finish with the last piece. I really am going to wait for that until I get started with these other pieces. I haven't looked at the instructions yet, so I might actually need this piece first. I don't know, but we'll see. So I'm going to read the instructions, and I'm going to see if I can get through with sewing their other pieces before touching this one, so I can see how it's supposed to fit, and that might make it easier for me to decide how this should be cut out. So that's what I'm going to do now. So the starting of sewing this has been a journey, to say the least. One, because my machine kept getting the strings caught and the thread kept leaving the needle again, so it's taking me many hours just to sew what little I have sewn, and especially this part here. When it got to this corner, it didn't want to go all the way through, but it finally finished these two bodice pieces, and I'm doing it based on what the instruction says and what I think it means, because unfortunately the pictures aren't as descriptive as what I would like, and it's a little hard to understand. So I think I've done it right. I'm not sure. And at first I misunderstood, and I tried to sew these two pieces of the bodice together at this point instead of just doing a seam on it, until I looked at later pictures and I realized that they can't be together, they have to be separate. And so in order to have this part be done on them as well. So I finally figured that out. And then my next error was this piece, because in the plans after doing this, it wanted me to work on the skirt, but I'm not ready for the skirt yet. So it had the skirt, and then you attach to the skirt and all of that, and then you were supposed to use some tape. I don't have any of the tape thing that they want. And then it brings me to this image. Now the instructions weren't very clear for me, maybe because I'm not that familiar with what they were talking about. So my first thought is, after I matched the pieces up, was that I would stick these together and sew it like this, just all the way across. But I couldn't get the seams to stay in line together. They kept moving, they kept bunching, and then I've unpicked this at least twice, and this last time it started to rip, and it's just still not good and together like. But then I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna layer it on top and sew. And this looks more like this picture. So I'm thinking that this right here is actually what it meant to do. So now I'm left with unpicking this somehow, trying to avoid tearing it anymore, and then once again layering it and sewing. Hopefully that will be good. And at some point these things have to go together. Now because I don't have this, it calls it twill tape here, you can see twill tape. I don't know what twill tape is, so, and I'm not sure how I'm supposed to get it in, like, it's a little confusing. So I don't know if not putting this twill tape in is going to be a big deal, and not attaching this piece to the skirt is going to be a big deal, because I just want to put the bodice together and try it on the bodice. I don't want to bother with the skirt yet, because I don't know if adding an inch all around is going to be any helpful at making it fit me. So I wanted to attach the whole entire skirt as in one piece, and then attach that to, I wanted to make the bodice all in one piece and then attach that to the skirt. The pattern instructions doesn't seem to want me to do that, so I don't know what it's going to look like when I have the bodice by itself, and if it'll actually go on and work and function as a bodice that I can try on to see if the measurements are right. So this little adventure is probably going to take a lot longer than I originally thought it was going to take. One, because of the machine. This is an old machine, so I'm wondering if it's because it's old, because it had been sitting for so long not being used, that it's behaving in this way, or if it's just me and not being used to using a machine. But it's starting to really annoy me, especially since the fact that I've been struggling so much with this machine that it's almost the same amount of time to sew it with the machine as it would be for me to just sit down and hand sew all of this, which makes me seriously think about just switching over to hand sewing. But since this is not the finished product, and this is not supposed to be my final gown that I'm going to be wearing and all of that, this is just supposed to be the first one completed, the first attempt at creating this gown, and not the final project. This is supposed to be like my first mock-up. I don't really want to spend all the time just hand sewing it. And I just realized that I've been sewing it on number 6, so the smallest stitching. I should be sewing this on number 10, so the biggest stitching. That way I can tear it out easier, especially since this is just a mock-up. So that's another thing that I haven't been doing right. But I'm going to try continuing using the machine. I'm going to adjust the setting, make the stitches bigger, work with it, and put the whole bodice together using the machine. I'm not going to do hand sewing because I really want this to be done as fast as possible. And the machine is slightly faster than me hand sewing, so I'm going to stick with it. And hopefully by the end of this video I will have a bodice piece or a full gown that is roughly my size. Let's see. Okay, so I finished attaching this piece, and then I read over the instructions again and again, and I realized that I had actually cut out some pieces that were meant for the overcoat, not just the dress. So I don't need those two other pieces. And the one piece that I was concerned about, and I didn't know how to do it, and here's actually the piece that is designed for the sleeves. So it will go in these sleeve holes, which changes how I was going to cut it up, because now I understand how it needs to be and what the hole right there is for and how it's going to fit in here. So that makes it a little easier. But now I have this all put together. These pieces are supposed to be put together like this, and then the bottom here is supposed to be where the dress, or sorry, where the skirt is, and since I don't want to work with the skirt yet, it is just this, and I'm going to try this on to see how it fits, even though this part right here is supposed to have hooks and stuff so it closes, so it's not going to close like that. I'm just going to see how it looks on, and then I will explain what I need to do next. Alright, so here it is on. I'm not entirely sure what I did anymore, because originally I put it on and I assumed that because the skirt is supposed to be gathered down here, that's why these lengths here are so long. But I'm thinking I might have, these might be the pieces that are supposed to be for the overdress, the outer coat thing that's according to this, because that seems to have a little kind of like that and a little bit of a clip thing going on if you look in the pictures of the pattern, this right here, and instead this dress, because as you can see in this picture there is no clip in the front here unless it is an underdress, and what you can see is an overdress here, because in the instructions it show adding a hook and clip to this part, which if that's the case then I've made this way too big, but I'm hoping the gathering will make it shorter. And if that is the case, then I was making the outer and not the inner layer as I wanted to, which would explain the extra pieces that I cut out, which are smaller in length than these, but are supposed to be attached to these back pieces, just as I have attached this one. And this, with it being attached like this, is a little bit higher than I think what this one wanted, but would make sense with this overcoat here. So it looks like it might be the correct sizing, because this going up is also typical of that era, so it's an okay thing to have it go up. This piece in the middle here may need to be a little bit longer if I don't want it to go up like that. And I might want to make if this, because this piece is supposed to come around like this. See, this is, if this is the over, then it makes sense for it to be that low, because you can see in the picture, you can see a little bit of the underdress. And when this comes in the front, it is quite low. So I may want to take these stitches out and attach the other, because I was supposed to make two of these back pieces, one for the gown and one for the outer gown, and I only made one because I was only going to be doing the inner, and now that I have attached the outer instead of the inner, whew, this is more complicated than I thought it was going to be. But I am glad that it seems adding an inch around all of it seems to be working, except for maybe just a little bit more in the back there. So I think I'd want to add an inch more on this part here, because this part, when I put it on, this corner point here is the part that goes up and doesn't seem as long as I like it to be. So adding an inch here so it comes down a little bit more, I think would be good. So that is what I'm going to do. And I did press out and iron these seams in here before trying it on to try and get it as flat as possible. So I think this works out very well. As I actually think it would work because I actually think it would kind of work as like a little wrap top thing. I'm not sure exactly how I'm supposed to get the whole gown on, unless as it curves in, the whole thing is supposed to open up like this. So the gown open to here, pull across, and the gown open on this side, and then pull across, and then clip on like they show. So it's kind of like, whoop. Unless that is what they're trying to do, I'm not entirely sure. And that's, it seems to be a very interesting choice to have it close in the front, even though this picture suggests that it doesn't close in the front. I don't know if you can see it too well because it's trying to focus on me and not on this picture. But in this picture there is no hook. There is nothing in here suggesting that it closes in the front. But according to the pattern, it wants it to close in the front, which I may be mistaking as the instructions for this overcoat, because this clearly closes in the front. But if that's the case, then I don't understand how they want the dress underneath to close, and I don't understand how it's different. So I'm going to have to read the instructions one more time and see what I want to do. I still have the the sleeve piece resting there waiting to be cut out, so I'm also going to debate whether or not I'm going to cut that and attach it to see how it goes. But yeah, I'll have an update after I decide. So looking back at the instructions, I'm reminded again of this twill tape that I didn't use because I did not have. And so it looks like they wanted me to run some twill tape here, and then because this part is attached to the skirt and making a channel, twill tape here, so this whole entire bit would be gathered in, which would make it smaller, and so the dress would be tied shut in the front. And so that is how it should be. Here, I can show you in this picture on the instructions, it actually shows it tied in the front here, which it doesn't look that way here in the picture at all. I cannot see it being tied shut, even if you move her hair, and even in this part here, you don't see it being tied shut. If I had known that, I wouldn't have picked out this pattern, because I don't like that being tied together in the front. Because to me, that makes it so I absolutely have to have this over garment to cover up this area, because I don't like the look of this. And even when you tie the front of something together, there's still going to be a gap where it meets, just like with a button-up shirt. And because of my size, I tend to not like to wear button-up shirts because they tend to gap more than lay flat. And so I'm afraid that this tying, there would definitely be a hole, so you would be able to see what's underneath the dress. And I don't like that idea too much. I feel like it would break with the image of what this dress is trying to achieve. So this for a little while to look at, to think about, and then maybe do something with it later, but I'm not sure because I really don't like this right here. And if I had studied the instructions a little bit more, I would have realized that. But I kept getting caught by this picture, and this looks really nice. But I'm thinking that this is an overdress on top of it, because you can also see, like, you can't really see the lines here too much of where it's sewn in the back, like with mine. You can't really see that sewn back like I have, which could be because mine's puckering a little bit here because of the material and how I sewed it. But I feel like this would be more noticeable than this. So I'm thinking that they may have something over top of it, like just a solid dress form over top of it, which is what I was more hoping for. Like, I was hoping that maybe it gathered in the front like this, and maybe it ties like that, but that wouldn't be, like, it would be more decorative than functional. Maybe I'm just wrong for thinking that, but that was my idea. Not saying this is a bad pattern in any way, just saying that I didn't understand what I was reading into, and that's because of my inexperience with patterns and reading instructions, so I didn't fully understand what I was looking at. So this could be a great pattern, it's just not what I was looking for entirely. So I decided before I put this away to finish cutting out the sleeve and at least sew up one of them and attach one of them. That way at least I get an idea about what the sleeve is like and get practice attaching sleeves. So this is the one piece that was cut but not sewn on, and I didn't bother ironing because I just wanted to practice. So I just went straight ahead and I sewed up the sleeve together, and now I'm pinning it in place. And I've never done sleeves before, so I'm not entirely sure if I'm even doing this correctly. I'll see once it's finished. But I've noticed that this sleeve arm seems to be bigger than the hole that it was intended for, and I'm not sure where that increase came from, other than maybe, yeah, because it should fit here because there's only one sleeve pattern for both the outer gown and the inner gown, so it should fit no matter what. So I'm just going to end up having to bunch it up, I guess, and attach it, but I'm going to sew all the way around here, and hopefully that works out well, and then I'll try it on and see if the sleeve is actually a good fit. Right. So I finished putting the sleeve onto the bodice piece. Now I accidentally attached the wrong side of the sleeve to it, so you can see my press seams here and the outside of the sleeve here. And the sleeve was a little bigger around than the hole here, so I had to sew in the extra fabric. So when I put it on, it bunches up here on the side. It's very bunchy, But as you can see, I have full range of movement, and it's not super tight anywhere on the arm. And I know this is the end part because it wanted it to come together like as a tie in the pattern. So this is fine, though I feel as if I had sewn this together, it might not be as loose or as comfortable as what I would have liked. But other than that, the rest of it seems to fit fine. So the measurements and how I did it seems to work out, seem to be good. So if I want to later go back and do this, use this pattern, like maybe I get around the whole closing in the front, which I don't like personally, but maybe I'll get over that and come back to this, or maybe I'll have the hook closure in the front instead of the gathering of the skirt. Figure out how I can do that with that skirt still intact. So maybe at a later date I will come back to this, and at least now I know that the sizing is right, so I just need to add an inch to all the parts that need extra inches. I still haven't tested this part out for the gathering or the twill tape, so this part may need to be lengthened, may not be. I'll just have to make a note of that whenever I get around to making this pattern again fully with the whole skirt. Then I will do that. But for now, this is the end. This will be the end of the video, because I feel with the whole entire process all put together, this is going to be a very long video, and if I add another project in, it's going to make it a super long video. So I'm going to end the video here. If you have any comments or suggestions, please comment down below to let me know if you have any questions or ways that I could have done this better, or ways to make it easier for pinning and sewing the sleeve. Anything that you can, or things that you noticed as I was going along that I could do better, like the placement on the fabric to make it so it fits better, and so I'm not using up so much extra fabric and have so much cut up and in a weird piece that's probably not really useful except for very tiny projects. So if you have anything like that, please comment down below, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!